I'm Bronwyn Morgan with Zio Air, and I am at AUVSI Xponential 2021 here in Atlanta. And it's so exciting to bring our podcast, ZioCast, live to AUVSI. We're talking to industry leaders across geospatial, drones, robotics, space, artificial intelligence, AI-based weather systems, and so much more, including advanced aerial mobility, UTM, government. It doesn't stop. So look forward to you joining us and listening to our leaders talk about what's happening with unmanned systems, drones, and more. So excited today to talk to Mark Genung, who is the Vice President of Operations with Iris Automation. Let's take a listen. Thank you so much for joining us today for ZioCast Live.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I've got so many things I want to talk to you about and ask you. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to Iris.
Well, you know, it wasn't a direct path by any means. I served in the U.S. Navy for 30 years, commanded 2 warships. But in all those operations, we routinely used aircraft and at times even unmanned aircraft, from everything from maritime security operations to counter-piracy operations. But on one of my deployments, I recognized that my helicopter detachment was insufficient to do my mission. When I came back from that deployment, I gave a briefing to my senior leadership that I suggested, hey, we should look, it's 2002, about taking advantage of commercial off-the-shelf UAVs to augment my helicopter detachment. And in standard Navy tradition, they said, hey, that's very interesting, Commander. I'm sure you got a lot of work to do on your ship. Go back to work. And so, despite that rebuff, I decided to learn how to fly these systems as a recreational pilot, which was a lot of fun. And then in about the 2012 time frame, I and several F-18 Hornet pilots, supported by private venture capitalist Ralph Collado, we formed a company called Overwatch Tools to determine what kind of work could be done with drones at that time, based on the global technology in 2012. So over about a year, every weekend I'm flying about 8 to 9 hours every weekend, doing a whole bunch of synthetic missions with VTOL aircraft, multi-rotors, fixed wing. And we built a playbook to kind of understand what work we could do. I retired from the Navy in December 2013. In May of 2014, then Administrator Herta at the Orlando AUVSI conference announced we're now going to allow commercial operations under Section 333. So we took the playbook out and said we think we can do really great work in precision, what we call precision infrastructure inspection. We submitted about 5 Section 333 waivers, and so by the following AUVSI, we were flying with Virginia Tech and the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership with great companies like Norfolk Southern Railroad, Dominion Virginia Power, and other telecommunication companies inspecting railroad bridges, high voltage power lines, and telecommunication towers. But I had this nagging desire to get into beyond visual line of sight. So about 5 years ago, I moved out to Reno and joined a company called Flirty, who's doing drone delivery operations, and I led several deployments to New Zealand, and we ultimately did delivery of pizzas for Domino's Pizza to homes in a suburban environment, operations over people, operations over roads, doing these deliveries. And that was really, really exciting. And while Flirty was very concentrated on how to work with businesses and how to safely do deliveries, they, like many companies, were dependent on other companies to develop technology to safely fly beyond visual line of sight. And that's when I met the co-founders of Iris Automation, and Alex Harmson and James Howard. And at that time, they were testing the technology essentially by flying in a park in San Francisco. And so they would get chased away by the park police, and they would realize they needed a dedicated testing campaign or program. And so they set that up in Reno, Nevada. I stalked them long enough to convince them that I should be the guy to lead that test program, and that's what I've been doing for the last 3.5 years.
Wow, what a journey!
So it's been a lot of fun, and I work with a lot of wonderful people, and I'm fundamentally responsible for safely and efficiently conducting these high consequence, high risk testing operations to prove out our technology.
Wow. Well, we want to get into the technology here in a minute, but before I do, from your experience and what you've seen and being a part of the foundation of this industry, what do you see? What's your prediction for what the future of UAS and aerial operations will look like in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I'd love to see it even happen earlier than 5 to 10 years, but I do think we're going to see the integration of unmanned aircraft seamlessly operating in the same national airspace as manned aircraft. I've done this while forward deployed with military systems. We safely flew my helicopter, I flew Scan Eagle, coexisting, doing great work and protecting the lives of hostages that again were captured by pirates. Have done other similar actions. And so I'm utterly convinced that we're going to see it again in the next 5 to 10 years, that the FAA is going to have the rule sets in place, and the industry is going to have the technology in place to enable this seamless operation. I was talking to a company that currently supports firefighting efforts, and right now that's kind of uppermost in my mind because there's major fires in California, which is tremendously disrupting our operations in Nevada. And currently, the way this aviation company with their unmanned vehicles, they basically segregate by time.
Right.
They fly at night, manned aircraft assets fly during the daytime. I would love that when I was flying, I was segregating by altitude,
right,
but not by time. And I think that there's a great opportunity there to, if they're seamlessly enabled, we can, save lives or have more resources to be able to fight other fires and allow those drones to do the so-called dull, dangerous, and dirty work. So I think the future is very, very bright, and from our perspective at Iris Automation, we're excited to be an enabler of doing exactly those things.
Wow. Well, that leads into my question about your technology, because you guys are definitely the ones to watch in this space. And so, what are the priorities for Iris right now? What are you thinking about?
Well, fundamentally, we're an aviation company, and more specifically, we're an aviation safety company. Our intended purpose in a wide variety of ways is to use our expertise in machine vision to enable aircraft to safely operate in national airspace, and that includes any number of elements. Currently, we focus on detect and avoid, or detect and alert, but there's a lot of other things that visual systems can enable. Imagine an aircraft flying a mission and realizing I now need to do an emergency landing, or even land where I intended to, but being able to recognize whether or not the landing zone is safe as a cloud run. I'm a private pilot. There's been more than once when I've been on approach on final, and a pilot, failed to look out the windows or failed to make a call out, and they get onto the runway to take off at an untowered airport. So these things happen in general aviation, manned general aviation. A family of four could be having a picnic where you plan on doing a divert or intended landing. We can bring a lot to supporting operations in a GPS-denied environment. Fundamentally, machine vision specifically, and the AI that we bring to this enables a whole host of capabilities. Because one thing I'm really appreciate about AUVSI this year is this notion of assured autonomy.
Yes.
And we believe that we bring that element of assurity so that the aircraft can autonomously do its mission.
Safety is such a big, I'm an FAA safety rep as part of the VAS team, and this is so critical, especially as it relates to public acceptance. It's just the right thing to do. You just can't fly unfettered without having a safety matrix in place. And so when you think about DAA, UTM, for BVLOS, what are the biggest challenges and hurdles that we need to overcome to make this a reality?
Well, the FAA will happily tell you that the North American national airspace is the most complex in the world. And there's any number of already legacy users, lighter than air aircraft, single engine, commercial, skydivers, ultralights. It's an amazing plethora of different kinds of aircraft types that are out there. And my experience in DoD is that when you bring a new system in place, the expectation that new system will become interoperable with all the other legacy operators. We're seeing the same thing, I think, in the drone industry. There's an expectation that the drone industry will somehow become interoperable with the current legacy operators in manned airspace. So I think the challenge is for us in the DAA side is having that ability to detect and recognize those legacy operators, not have a minimal false positive rate, because anything that's giving you alert every moment that's not an actual contact is going to be quickly ignored at your peril. And we want the system to fail in such a manner that it's an elegant failure. The operator knows about it. We have the redundancy and the capability to either divert or do whatever is necessary to safely stop that mission, so that, again, the public at large remains safe. At least 2 keynote speakers on Tuesday noted that their expectation for drone operations is to have a safety record consistent with civil aviation. Not general aviation, but civil aviation, which is, the probability of bad things happening to good people, 10 to the minus, a very big number.
Right.
And so that's the challenge for us, to be able to enable those kind of safety numbers.
Wow, that's impressive, but then it's important.
Yes.
Because the skies are about to get very crowded, and autonomy is going to further complicate that, and the challenges, I think, will continue to rise. So, with that, in your experience, I wasn't familiar with the work you've done with Authority. What applications are you most excited about, and which ones do you think we're going to see proliferate the fastest?
Oh gosh, fastest I think is going to be linear infrastructure inspection, because it's going to be a natural progression from what's currently being done with visual line of sight. I was doing visual line of sight operations in 2014, 2015. But when you're leapfrogging along, there's natural pauses in operations that you can now alleviate if I can fly 10 or 20 miles to be able to do the same mission. So I think linear infrastructure inspection probably be the first ones. But the things I'm most excited about is, like my mom, she is in her late 70s, is very uncomfortable driving at night, and in the wintertime, the days are short and the nights are long, and so more than once she's elected not to go get, say, her medications or her prescription final appointment because she was concerned about driving at night.
Absolutely.
So now all of a sudden we can now safely provide her that medication, or that mother at home that's got a sick child and a toddler who doesn't want to try to get everybody up and going. If we can do those kind of things to improve the quality of life of those we serve in that manner with drone delivery, I think that's a tremendous application for technology. I'm also very excited about the opportunities for search and rescue. Reno, Nevada, where we operate, is rugged mountainous terrain with the Sierra Nevadas. And so when people get lost or aircraft go down, we've been involved, my own pilots have been involved in search and rescue, searching to assist those kind of things. And I can easily imagine a future where now I launch 20 drones, they all fly different kind of patterns, they can safely, seamlessly integrate in national airspace. They find people, maybe even provide initial life support equipment or whatever, while meanwhile manned aircraft with EMTs or others now affect that rescue. So I'm very excited about that kind of a future. One where my mother is not afraid to go out at night, and one where we can save lives.
Absolutely. I mean, that is definitely drones for good. Well, when I think about this innovation, I mean, we are in an industry that is morphing, and innovation is taking place while we're in an innovative industry. I tell people I wake up in the morning and I'm just like, where did that come from? Where did this new technology come from? I didn't even know that yesterday. Do you think startups are the heartbeat of our industry? And do you think that they'll continue to give some of the larger, more established companies a run for their money?
I believe that wholeheartedly. I had a mentor once note that disruptive technologies don't come from large organizations. Their fundamental business model is, to do more of the same, maybe bigger. And if you truly want a disruptive technology in a positive manner, then startups who don't have any vesting in how we currently do legacy operations and are much more willing, if you will, to break the mold to solve this problem in a new way, are going to be the ones that do that. I have a friend who I had a chance to see his technology that him and his team built to support to rescuing people or searching in voids. And I'm not confident a big company would start that, but this is a scrappy startup that's found a compelling need, built an aircraft very capable of doing all sorts of devices to enable it to execute its mission. And I just don't think a large company would, out the door, build something because it's so disruptive and so outside their likely comfort zone or their business model.
Right.
They won't take on. Now, there's some noted exceptions.
Sure.
I think companies like UPS, where they've spun off UPS Flight Forward
Yes.
and are looking at how to do drone delivery, are trying to have the best of both worlds. They take advantage of their 100 years of legacy of operations, but spin out a company within a company to solve some of these head-hurter problems. So there's some exceptions in there, but I think but even still, in that example, they're emulating the startup environment. So I think startups are going to continue to be the creative, as you said, heartbeat of our industry.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so impressive to walk around, and one of the things that's impressed me here is the new drones that are out, the new UAVs, size, payload, and range, which is so important, to me. But I'm seeing some that are going 200 miles from their base point. And for delivery and for certain very special missions, that's going to be critical, and that dovetails right into BVLOS. How do we manage this in these kind of long range flights? So we're excited to see the work that you're doing, and do you have any other words of wisdom you'd like to add?
Well, I'm not confident about words of wisdom, but I think as an industry, the expression I use with my team and those are partners is that the tide raises all boats. And the expression here, I think, is that as an industry, we need to work together to solve these problems. Again, one of the speakers at the first keynote talked about this notion of cohesion or cooperation. And I think we as an industry, if we can focus on finding the most correct solutions, work together with the regulators to find commonality and solve problems. We may not be able to solve every problem on day one, but find that commonality and work forward. I think that's ultimately going to lead to the long-term and very successful industry doing the kind of things that I like to see, again, saving lives and improving the quality of lives of those we serve.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mark. Those have been your 6 questions. Thank you for joining us on ZeoCast, and we look forward to talking with you in the future.
Same here. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Absolutely.